Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very special Valentine's Day show coming right up with special guest, Guy-Finley, and he's here today to share with us his new book, Relationship Magic, Waking Up Together. Now, Guy has been on the show before. He's an internationally renowned spiritual teacher and best-selling author. He's the founder and director of the Life of Learning Foundation, which is a nonprofit center for transcendent self-study located in Merlin, Oregon. He hosts the Foundation's Wisdom School, which is an online self-discovery program for seekers of higher self-knowledge. He's the best-selling author of The Secret of Letting Go and 45 other books and audio programs that have sold more than 2 million copies worldwide. So let's welcome to the show, Guy-Finley.
Thanks, Marianne. I'm glad to be with you.
What a joy it is to have you here again talking about your book, Relationship Magic. I mean, what a profound book. And, of course, on Valentine's Day, who doesn't want to talk about relationship magic then, right?
Seems like the perfect day.
Well, and so for our listeners that are kind of new, I'd love for you to share with us just the inspiration behind writing this book, because it's such a great book.
Oh, Marianne, as I may have alluded to before, every book that I've written is about relationship, because in the end, everything about our life and our experience of it is determined by the relationships we have and what we learn about ourselves in those relationships. Because you can't separate self-discovery from the involvement that we have, and not just with friends, family, and lovers, but with the world that we're in, with everything that goes on within us as well. So it's really kind of an important foundation for our discussion to realize that we are, as human beings, brought into a world where our very existence, who and what we are, and again, what we realize through those relationships, depends upon who we're with, what we're acting through. All of that is tied into the way in which we know ourselves.
Well, isn't that the truth? Because you're so right. We can't separate that, and all of our great experience and our lessons come from relationships.
Absolutely. And more importantly, at least 50% important, is that all of the great lessons in our life come to us through relationships. And that's really the central point of my book, that we are brought together with whatever it is that we're drawn to, whether it's someone or something, an avocation, a hike through the woods, because in the moment of that relationship with whatever it may be, we are thrust into a kind of awareness of ourselves that we didn't have the moment before. So that each and every relationship we're in serves as a very special kind of mirror that is, in fact, a mirror of our own consciousness. Example, I look out and I see the leaf-strewn forest floor in front of me. I live in the mountains, where so much of the oak tree leaves literally cover the pastures. Well, that's an impression and a feeling that I don't have other than this time of the year. And again, that I don't have unless I actually become aware of it. And when I do, the color, the pattern, the general light, all of those conditions make me aware of a part of myself that ordinarily I'm not aware of. So that the relationship with the moment serves as a revelation, and the revelation is always some aspect of my own character that I don't have access to ordinarily. So the relationships are a very important mirror that we have to understand don't just bring us moments where we feel balanced and harmonious, where we're glad for the partner we have because of the pleasing feelings he or she gives us. But we must also understand that that same relationship, whether it's with our partner in terms of a personal relationship or our partner of the moment, the person tailgating us on the freeway, the upset stomach because we ate something at night we shouldn't have, or whatever it may be, that relationship brings a lesson to us. And the lessons that we don't want from these relationships are every bit as important, if not more so, than the ones that we do want. Because in the end, every aspect of relationship is intended to help us become self-realized creatures, men and women who know the truth of themselves, and in knowing the truth of ourselves are freer for knowing that truth.
Well, and this has me kind of wondering, and I've always, our last conversation I felt was really profound. That's why, of course, we have you here talking with us today on Valentine's Day. It's just another beautiful conversation we had here. With knowing what, with what was just said, are there limitations in relationships? Because then that would also because I think some people equate relationships to having limitations. And if so, do we limit ourselves with that kind of thinking?
In a very unseen way, but that you and I will uncover here, the only limitation that any of us have in life, let alone with a particular person, is always a self-limitation. That doesn't mean that relationships in and of themselves are limitless, because there are times when we meet someone and whatever the root cause of that attraction, there are times when it's quite natural for one partner to outgrow the other because the one partner is more ready to go through that kind of transformation, which might require separation. But to the point, what is it that limits me in any given moment, Marianne, other than what I understand about myself in that moment? All limitation is born out of not understanding our possibilities in a moment. We can prove this, so it's a little more down to earth. Let's say that, like me, my particular love in terms of physical activity is golf. I like to play golf. I believe it saved my life because when I was a boy, I was paralyzed in a football injury. I had won a scholarship to SC to play ball in my last year of high school. And all of my training to that point was to become a football player. I thought I'd play college ball and go on to play pro ball. But when I got paralyzed, I obviously couldn't play football anymore. And it severely limited running and a whole of a, list of sports. When I found golf, it was something that I could do. Walking wasn't strenuous. And though it was a challenge, it was something that I was drawn to. Now to the point, anyone who takes up a sport, no matter what it is, or an avocation like painting or sculpting or carpentry, what is the limitation in the moment when suddenly we find ourselves frustrated because we can't do what something in us feels like we ought to be able to do? Is it because we can't do it? Or is it because we just haven't met and transcended whatever that part of our understanding is of the sport or the activity? And the answer is always clear. The limitation isn't something saying, no, you can't go forward. It's saying before you can go forward, you're going to have to understand what it is that's standing between you and what you imagine as your possibility. So that as we begin recognizing that these moments where a lot of us are turned away from something because we run into something that just makes us crazy, we don't recognize the limitation is an invitation. And the invitation is not just to discover where we are applying old ideas that don't work, attempting to do something we've done 1,000 times, and it will not change the outcome, so we have to change the approach. And in all of that activity to finally realize that life is literally saying, Guy, if you want to move beyond this point in your relationship with golf, you're going to have to let go of some old ideas that you brought into golf with you, because they're limitations. They may have gotten you started, but now they're holding you back. So now to complete the metaphor, it's exactly the same thing with relationships. We come into relationships with preconceived ideas about them. That my partner should always be, do, or act in this way, and that I must always appear or somehow carry off a certain behavior that my partner likes. And as we all know, in stage 1 of love, that's brilliant. We have no faults, neither do our partner, because everyone's in love, and there can be no wrong, right? The idea, right? I mean, that's just, everything's glorious, but necessarily so. In fact, by an act of love, that first glimmer and glitter begins to wear off, so that we can start to move deeper into the understanding of what love has brought us together for in the first place, which is to discover not just the limitations in ourselves that limit our relationships with others, but a limitation in us that keeps us from understanding this much broader kind of love, whose intelligence and kindness and mercy brings us into relationships so that we can discover these limitations and transcend them, so that we become capable of deeper acts of kindness, more consistent compassion, and ultimately to realize an unconditional love. Because love brought us into a relationship with someone. Love, if you will, drew me into a relationship with golf, so that I could discover through that relationship where old ideas, old images, old habits and patterns cannot enter into the new relationship. And if I want the refreshed, new relationship, the new powers, the new possibilities, I'm going to have to let go. And how can I let go of something that I don't know is a limitation until I meet it and see it as such? I hope that wasn't too long, but I wanted to make
that's a perfect example, and I'm so glad you gave that as an example, because a lot of times people think that, relationships need to look a certain way or have to be a certain way. And, it's interesting the limitations we put on ourselves and those around us.
There are a host of things in us that we don't know live in us. Limitations. And most of us never know their limitations, because whenever a limitation is exposed through a relationship of some kind, that limitation that wants to remain in place because it is familiar to us and it actually defines us, will find the other person or the situation at fault for the pain. The person, the partner, the situation does not produce the pain. They reveal a pain that lives in us that doesn't want to be revealed. Nothing in us can be healed as long as it remains concealed. Nothing in us can be healed as long as it remains concealed. Limitations remain concealed because they belong to a character that is the first to cast the stone, to judge the partner or the situation for the shortcoming, instead of realizing that the real shortcoming is in that nature itself. An example: all of us have been hurt at some point in love. it would be the absolute rarest of persons who falls in love at 15 and lives for 75 years with their partner. Most of us have been hurt in love. When we get hurt in love because we were too young, incapable really of understanding what that pain was about, we don't ever want to get hurt again. Many of us say to ourselves, I swear to God, I'm never going to go through that again. And some will live for years in the fear of a deepening relationship because of the depth of that pain that we went through once upon a time. I myself had that experience. So what happens is that we have an experience that actually was intended to change our consciousness, but being too young couldn't. And so instead of changing our consciousness, fixed in it a certain aspect, a certain idea, a certain demand, really, that life never touch me in that way again, because I never want to be touched in that way again. And so I meet someone completely different than the person who may have hurt me. And all I know, without ever being aware of it, is that every moment that I spend with that person is colored in the background by a level of my own consciousness that just isn't going to get hurt again, and so it can't give itself again. Not completely. And when it can't give itself again, my partner, one way or the other, knows that, and maybe they're in the same boat, which the odds are they are. So here you have two people brought together by a limitless love that could express itself in an absolute limitless way, but that because of a limitation in myself or my partner or both of us, we cast a certain look upon our partner with suspicion, with doubt. In fact, everything they do that even remotely resembles the former act of betrayal immediately brings up blame, instead of bringing up the realization that there's a pain in me I don't know anything about, and by the grace of God, I might add, through God's love, my partner is awakening me to this concealed pain, that until it's healed, I will never be able to be completely giving. I'll always be withholding. And by the way, holding my partner's feet to the fire for anything that remotely brings up that unseen demand in myself that no one ever hurt me again. Do you see it, Marianne?
Yeah, I sure do. And it's interesting when we allow pain to dictate our lives. And you talk about painful patterns in relationship magic. And, and so I'm so glad that you use that as an example so that people can better understand how that can really shape things.
Yes, because you see, it isn't really that we allow pain to produce our relationships. Imagine an anthropologist, a sociologist of some kind, wanting to study customs in third world countries, the native habits and their patterns. And so packing her backpack and notepad, she flies to some distant country where one of the things that she's so fascinated with is the way they trade with one another in these huge open-air markets. And the third day there, gathering an interpreter with her because she doesn't fully speak the language, off she goes to one of these open-air markets where villages at cross-sections of that country all bring their wares together to have the exchange. On her way there, she mounts a certain road, and coming up one side, she sees something that she wasn't prepared for. And what does she see? Well, as unbelievable as it is to her, as it would be to us, should we see it, coming up the road, barely making it, is a man, and he's wearing a saddle, and riding in the saddle is a donkey, and the man's pulling a cart of sugarcane up the path. Now, imagine, Marianne, seeing a man being saddled by a donkey pulling a cart of sugarcane to the open-air market. Doesn't that seem strange?
Seems very strange.
so she
I
goes
guess
over.
donkeys get the payback, right?
So she goes over and with her interpreter inquires, what's going on here? Why is this so reversed? Why would you let a donkey saddle you, let alone you pull the cart? That's what the beast is for, to assist. And the interpreter asks the question and then has a shocked look on his face as he tells our anthropologist, well, the man said that the reason the donkey is riding him is because that's the only way he can get the donkey to go to the market with him. Now, in case that isn't clear, we're not meant to be saddled by any beast. We're not meant to be saddled by any pain, saddled by any tormenting thought or feeling. And if we are saddled by them, it's because we don't understand our relationship to them. We are created to be able to use these beasts, not harm them, not whip them, so we don't get into some strange PETA thing here, but rather to understand that when pain tells us who we are, the role is reversed. When fear tells us to run from something or blame something, the role's reversed. It's got us under it. It's spurring us, and we're pulling its burden. So that pain doesn't tell us what to do. Pain is something that we are unaware of in ourselves and how we have always served it. And we've served it unconsciously. Because when pain tells us, a demand tells us, look, you better straighten your partner out because they're not pulling their part of the load here. In that moment, a limitation in us is telling us that we need to do something to our partner to get rid of our pain. Nothing we will ever do or demand of our partner will relieve us from the fear that we live with, the doubt or the anxiety that we brought with us into that relationship. Pure and simple. They did not create it in us. Rather, through our relationship, they are helping it to be revealed so that what is concealed can be healed, but only when we know what to do in the moment of that revelation. Because now, when that pain, that fear, that worry shows up, the donkey's on our back, it spurs us, and we blame our suffering on something outside of us. When we can understand eventually, as we will, that the moment of that revelation is so that we can actually wake up. And you know what? I've been in 3 relationships now where I blame my partner for being insensitive. Could it be that I have brought something with me into this relationship that needs to see someone as being insensitive? Because I don't want to be sensitive to the pain in myself, to the fear in myself, to the expectation I have that my partner should never in any other way do anything but please me. Maybe the partner isn't the problem. Maybe they're part of something that might help me discover and release what is this limitation in myself.
I love that. And, you know, it's interesting. In your book, Relationship Magic, you talk about this invisible power of love that we're drawn to because of the new possibilities that their energy offers. And I can see how that happens, and it could be where we're learning the lesson, you know, of things that we need to heal ourselves, or
Yes.
maybe it's coming to a point where we've kind of worked through that, and, you know, the relationship we're desiring to have is that, you know, is what's being drawn to us.
is there any one of us that hasn't been in a relationship? And maybe there has been, the way the world is today, but some of us at least have had this experience, and most of us can understand it, even if it hasn't been a blessing to us yet.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Guy Finley in regards to his new book, Relationship Magic, Waking Up Together. And this is a special Valentine's Day show presentation. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest, Guy Finley, and he's sharing with us his new book, Relationship Magic, Waking Up Together. Now, Guy, I'd like to talk about making mistakes in relationships. How important is it that we admit to when we make mistakes?
To have our partner actually look at us and say, you know what? I was wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to act that out. And I will do my best to never do that again. In that moment where we see a real repentance, a real remorse over our partner having seen something in their own character that, by the way, we may have pointed out 100 times. But in case it isn't clear to everyone listening to us, the sure way to make sure your partner never deals with something that troubles you about them is to push their face in it. We change when we see we need to change, not when others tell us we have to. Now, our partner may help in a sort of catalytic way to bring into our consciousness an awareness of a selfishness, a sloppiness, a frustration and anger and impatience. But nothing our partner points out as a fault in us will change until we see it as a fault. And while our listeners may not like this, all of us have faults. Our partners can help us discover them. There's a section in the book, one of my favorites, where I say that love often appears as a beggar at the door. Because there are these old stories through ancient teachings, the great myths of our past, where gods would appear at the door of individuals dressed as beggars to see whether or not the individual would let the gods in or the god in. And depending on how the person treated the god would treat the person. Can't think offhand of the names of the two gods I used in the story, but they appeared at the door of a woodsman and his wife, very poor elderly people with very little. And when they knocked at the door in the rain, appearing as beggars, the old couple had just a little bit of porridge in a pot hanging over the fire and very little wood to make the fire to keep their cabin warm. And the god said, "Will you let me in?" And in this story, they said, "Well, yes, we have very little, but what we have, we're willing to share." And as a reward, the gods granted that old couple, out of their love for one another, their wish that they should ever be entwined, and they made them into immortal trees that were forever entwined. Beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the parallel here is that when our partner does something we don't like, it's a God knocking at the door. Because our partner is the instrument of love. They may not even know it. Love is using us in that moment to bring about in our partner a sudden awakening and realization of an aspect of their own character that isn't just a limitation to the relationship they're in, but a limitation of that person's relationship with the love that brought them together in the first place. And if we let the beggar in, and why is it a beggar? Because it already seems like we don't have enough. Do you understand that? It already feels like, look, you know, you're making me feel like this thing's coming to an end. I don't have the patience. I don't have the compassion. I don't have the love in this moment. I say I love you, but I don't have it right now. Because you brought this thing up in me, and I want to hold your feet to the fire, not bring you in and let you warm yourself by mine. But when we understand that moment is an invitation to realize where it is that in us there is this demand, this expectation, and that in the revelation of it, to realize, all right, you know what? I don't have much, but I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to invite you in, and I'm going to share with you what I have to share. Translation, I'm going to sit with what you have asked me to see in myself. And instead of closing the door, slamming it on you for what you are showing me, I'm going to welcome the revelation. And when we do, what was concealed is healed. We become a more integrated human being. And whatever former limitation was on our relationship is released. Because we are no longer the same level of human being we were when that relationship started, let alone in the moment where we were released from that limitation.
Do you find that the limitations that we have, they show themselves when we're ready to deal with them, or do they just all come at once?
No, they never all come at once. Love doesn't work that way. It may feel like that way to us, though. I mean, who doesn't? Look, we're not talking about trying to be saints here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people hear these ideas, which, by the way, they're not my ideas. in one way or the other, call it what you will, celestial love, divine love, the Buddha, the Christ, you name it, has been acting on and through human beings for as long as we've been on the planet. And the teachings have always been the same teaching. Will you, for love's sake, see what love is asking you to see, and as best you're capable of doing, choose in favor of love? An example. We don't have to be rocket scientists, Marianne, to know that love doesn't hate. Can love hate?
It kind of doesn't work that way, yeah.
No, look, we want to say it can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look, I wouldn't hate you right now if I didn't love you. That's insanity.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be trying to punish you this way if I didn't care so much. That's ludicrous. And yet, unbeknownst to us and in unknown ways, when moments happen and our partner pushes the proverbial button, that's exactly what we do. We lend ourselves to that pain and its instruction to try and make our partner responsible for a button on our clothing, meaning in our consciousness, that we brought with us into that relationship. Partners don't create buttons. Partners push them. But they push them so that we can see the machinery. And that's all these negative states are. That's all the action of these old memories trying to reinstate themselves represent. Is a button gets pushed, the old machinery of blame, doubt, fear, anger, hatred revs up its engine and begins to try to roll over whoever or whatever it is that seems to be producing it. Love says, Guy, Marianne, I'm not a machine. I'm not a mechanical man, a mechanical woman. I'm not a creature. I'm not a beast of burden that jumps through the hoop whenever the button gets pushed. But before I can know that I'm not these things, I have to recognize that these things actually live in me and that my partner didn't produce them, and now I must be responsible to their appearance. And that's the beginning of another kind of love. That's stage 2. That's where we begin to use these revelations for self-realization instead of letting the revelation drive us into something that basically buries the possibility of our breaking free of these unseen limitations. And as I said, we're not saints, the way we imagine ourselves to be, I might add.
Mm-hmm. Well, and do you ever get people that share with you that they're maybe afraid to open themselves up where, they can see what it is that they need to work on, because if that happens, then they have to work on everything?
So again, what are we relying on here? The more I talk about this book, the more I'm able to see even more clearly. Let's examine your question, shall we, Marianne, so that everybody can see themselves through it. So let's translate it. I'm afraid that if I see something in myself that I know is a limitation, that I might see more limitations, and therefore I don't want to see the first one, let alone anything else that's painful in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what says that? Does love say that?
No.
Does love say, I think it would be better for me to live with anger? Or I'll change the metaphor. Does light ever go, and does the sun fear a shadow?
No.
No. Does the sun, before it rises, say to itself, oh my God, it's so dark out there?
No, it doesn't do that either.
Of course it doesn't. Because it's the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And the darkness isn't because the sun doesn't exist. The darkness is just the momentary absence of the light. I'm going to say it again. The darkness is just the momentary absence of the light. Fear is the momentary absence of love. Perfect love casts out fear. That's right out of Scripture, east and west, I might add. So if anything in me says, well, I'm kind of afraid of seeing these things in myself, because there may be more behind that I don't want to know about, I need to recognize I'm not just listening to an unconscious dark part of myself, but I'm actually agreeing to take its side, which love would never do.
Well, this is why I love talking with you so much. You set the record straight.
That's what we
break
have.
It down in, you break it down in such a way that's so easy for people to really grasp and understand, because, you know, and the reason I asked that question, because I've actually heard people say that before.
Yes.
Where they're like, ooh,
all of us have
I don't know
felt
if I
it.
want to open that. Yeah.
Exactly. You kidding? I'm not going to open that can of worms. What if they all get out? Ignoring completely the fact that I'm saying I'm going to live with worms. I'm going to live with something that's always wiggling out of whatever it is that appears in me by blaming someone or something else for it, and then I'm going to wiggle myself so deep into the darkness that the worm loves that I'll finally be so far away from the light that I'll become a bitter person, an angry person who has no chance to let go because I've completely embodied those conditions. And we have all seen people like that. You want to know how people become bent over in bitterness, aggressive in a ceaseless arrogance and anger? It's because they refuse to let love act on them when love appeared at the door, let me in. Because if you'll let me in, I will bring in with me something that doesn't appear at the door with me. And that is freedom from yourself, because I will help you see what is holding you a captive of a level of consciousness you were never intended to be saddled by.
I love it. I love it. This is why Relationship Magic is such a huge hit. I mean, people are just loving this book. I've seen just the amazing reviews that you've gotten on it, because it's really taking people on a journey, kind of walking them back home to themselves in many ways.
Yes, that is exactly it. It's the power of the book isn't in the book any more than the power of a fire reflected in a mirror is the reflection. The mirror reflects the fire. We have in us a consciousness that instantaneously recognizes what is good and what is loving. Our relationship to that moment is to put ourselves on the side of the part of us that knows the truth, even though we may not be able yet to enact it. That's what St. Paul was alluding to. Would that I do the good that I know, but I don't, I do the evil. He was saying, I know that love exists, but for some reason or another, I keep choosing to do the other thing. But at least I'm aware of the struggle now. And that's what you were alluding to, even if you don't know it. Do I really want to wake up to this struggle? Do I really want to meet a moment where I understand I want to respond with kindness? I want to be patient. I don't want to make my partner suffer because I had a bad day and then blame them for not comforting me. I want to be the one who refuses to drag my partner into my own pain, because I understand love doesn't drag my partner into my pain. Love asks me to live up to the moment where I see my pain as the product of a demand. I demand that my partner at work never speak to me like that. And when he or she does, I come home and then I demand my partner be a consolation to me. And then I blame them for the pain I brought home from the office. We need to see these things and then become mature men and women. Start acting as we're intended to act. And again, much to the last chapter of the book, we're in training. We're in training. We can't expect ourselves to just suddenly, oh, I get it. And then, go try to slay the dragon and find ourselves turned into a crispy critter, We just have to understand. Because, look, what was Albert Einstein's definition of insanity? Do you know it offhand?
Oh, it's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
That's right. So if every time I get into an argument with life or my partner, and every time I meet my partner or life with the same demand, that they coalesce, that they change, that they come to me, then all I'm doing is reliving a moment where I've been saddled by an unseen expectation or demand, a pain, and then expecting somehow or other something to change. It can't change until I change. Not my partner. But listen to this beautiful fact. If I change any element about the pattern, even if it's just to delay for 30 seconds, my habitual retort, in that moment, because I have attempted to put love first, to see myself as I am, I have been changed. Because now I see I can't change. Not you need to change, but God, I tried to be different. I was overwhelmed. What in God's name is overwhelming me? It isn't love. Love doesn't overwhelm me with anger. Love doesn't overwhelm me with some insistence. I get it. Something is in me I didn't know was in me, and I'll never be the same again. In fact, I'm going to be more watchful. And I've changed. And if I've changed under the laws of physics, quantum mechanics, the fact that the observer changes, the observed changes. To some degree, some maybe minuscule way, but I'm different. And I'll never be the same for what I've been given to see. And if I've changed, I will treat my partner differently. In that 30 seconds that I didn't respond the way I always did, my partner didn't get to react in the way he or she always did. So they got to see something because I got to see something. That's called love. Because now there's a chance that my partner may change, but even if he or she doesn't, I have. And I'll give them more of an opportunity. I'll give them more space the next time. Because the next time, by the grace of God, and one day I'll actually say, God help me, I'm not going to be the same man. I'm not going to be the same woman. I'm going to start using the knock at the door of the beggar that seems to be asking for what I don't have to invite them in to be given all that I need and have ever wanted to be a different kind of human being.
That is so beautiful. And my goodness, Guy, obviously, not only do I love your book, Relationship Magic, but just our discussions that we've had on this topic, because you are so insightful when it comes to relationships, and a lot of times and you do talk about relationships with other people, but it's really the relationship within ourselves.
Yes.
You know?
It is all about that. Because we meet everyone through what we understand and value above all else. Any moment in our life, we started our conversation with this, our response is always the best we know to do. We never respond in any other way other than with the best we know how to do. But we can change the best we know how to do, instead of demand that others accept our idea that the best we know how to do is the end-all, be-all, and nothing can be better.
Oh, and then another, leaf unfolds, and there's still better and more that we can do. And your book, Relationship Magic, is a great way for people to start taking that journey and getting there themselves. Guy, where can people connect with you? Because we could talk for hours, and my goodness, it would be easy to do that. Where can people connect with you and be part of your community?
Thank you so much for the offer to mention this. Look, number one, if you're interested in the book, if you go to relationshipmagicbook.com, relationshipmagicbook.com, you'll be directed there to a couple of the major retailers. And if you order your book through one of those major retailers, then you will be redirected where you will receive on the spot, excuse me, a download of the audiobook that I read. You get instantaneously a 3-hour webinar that I gave on the magic material. And you get a free 60-minute MP3 about the higher aspects of love. 3 gifts just for going to relationshipmagicbook.com. If you want to find out about my community, the men and women who I'm working with and that are working with me, go to guy-finley.org, www.guy-finley.org. On that website page, on the home page, you'll find out about a host of things that we are doing day to day to bring these ideas not just into the world, but into the practical application in our own life. And lastly, we have an online wisdom school, guy-finley-now.com, GUYFINLEYNOW, guy-finley-now.com. And this is an online wisdom school where men and women from all over the world meet 2 or 3 times a week to discuss the ideas on the talks that I'm giving that are live streamed and then archived as part of the school's itinerary. So we look and talk about these ideas together, and that's guy-finley-now.com. So there's 3 ways. You can get the book, get the gifts, you can just find out about the general website and the activities, including that, we have once a year over the solstice, a gathering in the pines here where hundreds of men and women come to talk about this, to meditate, and to work on these ideas. So I've gone on long enough. You get the idea. Follow up. Act on the knowledge. That's the important thing.
And, of course, make sure, as we're circling back around, pick up your own copy of Relationship Magic. It's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie bookstores. Guy, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
I can say we've had 2 really moving conversations, and I appreciate it as much as you do. I thank you for it.
Guy, it's always such a pleasure to spend time with you. I'm so glad we got to do this again. Happy Valentine's Day, and thank you for being here with us to share your new book, Relationship Magic, Waking Up Together. Again, if you'd like to connect with Guy Finley, you can at guy-finley.org, and we'll have the link below. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.